Hey, everybody. Great episode. My friend David Sauers. He is the number one man in the number two business. He owns and operates a waste services company, specifically a mobile waste services company, and he's been able to build that company over the last 20 years to 50 franchises all over the nation with a whole heck of a lot of meat still on the bone for him to go and continue growing. So if you like this podcast, please share it with your friends and family. That means so much to us. And subscribe to us on your favorite place to listen to that: Spotify, Audible, Google, or any of the other streaming platforms out there. That helps us so much and keeps us going, and belief that people are out there and taking value from this. So thanks, everybody. Enjoy this episode. Dude, what's happening, brother?
How are you? I'm well. Thank you for having me on today.
David, man, I told you before the podcast started, some of my favorite conversations have been with entrepreneurs that are in alternative fields. And your business, it stinks. You know, I had to get that one out there. But David, why don't you tell us a little bit about your company, what you've been up to? You said 20 years, man. That's a long time.
Yeah. Uh, you know, 20 years. Nobody dreams of owning their own porta potty business. I mean, who does? Is that something that anybody really thinks about? I mean, I think when I was a kid, I wanted to be a truck driver because I thought that was,
Astronaut, football player,
you know,
basketball star, singer, rapper, any of those. Probably not porta potties, right?
yeah. I mean, for what insane reason would anybody want to clean up other people's crap, much less collect it? But yeah, um, David Sauers here with Royal Restrooms. Started it 20 years ago out of by accident, really. My daughter, we were at a Shakespeare in the Park festival here in Savannah, Georgia, and she was potty training. Had Stella on with me and Cece, my two daughters, and we went to a porta potty. And back then, nobody thought anything, you know, but a porta potty. It was just part of life. Nobody thought of anything better outside, and people just dealt with it. Well, I took the girls into the porta potty, and it was a flipping nightmare. Um, no room. It was
Yeah,
dark.
you're trying to get three people in one porta potty.
Yeah, I am flipping out. I am just like, don't touch anything, don't do anything. She's asking me, why are we looking at people's, bathroom? Uh, it was just terrible. I had to pawn CC off to a guest outside who was waiting in line. So I've got my foot kind of cracked open on the door so I can keep an eye on her. And I'm holding Stella above the porta potty, and she just pees all over me. Uh,
Oh, no.
golden shower right there. Uh, no way to stop it, no way to change it, nowhere to clean up. It's just done. So I left the festival, took the girls, and I was just like, why are we still going to the bathroom like the freaking Romans? We're in the 21st century. Why is this acceptable? And went out and measured my half bath downstairs and said, we can put this on a trailer.
Mm.
And
It was
sat
that
on it
quick.
for,
You just like you
yeah.
knew kind of right away that that's what you wanted to do.
I mean, it was just, there wasn't anything around it. I mean, you went on the internet and you looked around, nobody was doing anything like it. It just wasn't, there just wasn't anything there.
Mm.
So my business partner Robert, he was really the catalyst that propelled this forward. I would have probably just sat on it because back then I was comfortable in how my life was going. I wasn't thinking outside of the box, and Robert was just like, "This is a great idea, man. Let's kick this into motion." And
What did life
you
look
know,
like for you at that moment in time? What were you doing otherwise?
I was a commercial banker for a local bank here in Savannah.
Mm.
At the time, I was with Colony Bank, um, and Robert was an environmental engineer. So the two of us worked. We did a lot of stuff together. We were in the same fraternity, different colleges, but he was phase one. He did a lot of phase one environmentals for me. So we
Mm-hmm.
were, kind of buddies in arms there.
Mm. That's a big change from being a commercial banker with two kids to a guy running a would you even call it a porta potty business? Is porta potty is that like one of those Xerox type nouns that describes the product and the company? Was porta potty actually like a brand at one time?
I don't know if it really was. Most of the time we call them porta johns down here,
Okay, all right.
at least in the South. I think in the Northwest they're called honey buckets and
I've never heard that one. Honey bucket.
honey bucket. Yeah, that was kind of funny, and that's actually a company name, but that's the majority of what people called it was honey bucket.
Mm.
But we just portable toilet, I guess. But that really wasn't what we set out to be. We really wanted to elevate that experience. We really went after the we call them luxury restrooms. They're not even really luxury. It's just luxury compared to a portable toilet.
Mm-hmm.
So we really went after that market that was weddings and special events and catered to a higher client wanting to, kind of create that ambience of the entire event, not just one part of it.
Take me back. So you're a commercial banker. Life's decent. It's good.
Mm.
You got a couple of kids. You're shaking your head, so it sounds like banking was all right for you. You said your business partner was actually a little more maybe serious about taking the leap. Where were you mentally at that point in time about starting your own business? I mean, was that something that you had thought about doing, dreamed about doing, or was it just like, hey, I got this idea, I don't know, what do I do with it now? Because I got a whole notepad full of business ideas, and most of them I know will never go anywhere. But I'm a big advocate for writing them down.
I've always had that, just that internal itch to do something. I started working at an early age at a golf course. I was a range boy, and I worked at popular tourist street in Savannah, River Street. So I always had this work ethic. I always wanted to do more. I always wanted to, have money in my pocket. But I wasn't ever looking for that shortcut. But I was always like, how can you do something a little bit better? I always remember it seemed like every job I ever worked, it was like, okay, they've mastered this. How can I tweak it to just make it a little bit easier? How can I sell some, just like I worked at a popcorn store. How do we get people to buy more Coke? Well, you kind of do like the Big Mac. You supersize it, you tack on stuff, and they weren't doing it. And it's kind of like, it wasn't really that much of an idea. It was just, hey, let's put it into motion and let's try it. Now all of a sudden, instead of making a few dollars, we're making $10 a sale. And so I've always had this knack to continue to want to build something, to push myself, and it was kind of a game in a lot of ways. I did a lemonade stand one time and ended up getting not really a lemonade stand. It was on a tricycle in downtown Savannah, and made a killing off of it, but ended up getting shut down by the city because I didn't have a business license.
Damn regulation.
17 years old. I mean, how was I supposed to know? I mean, I just
I was thinking like 7. They're like coming in and smashing this kid's dream. 17, yeah, I don't know, maybe.
It's you go sell fresh squeezed lemonade around Savannah at $3-4 a pop. You sell a few hundred and make a few $100 a day. That ain't bad.
Yeah, no, not bad at all for 17 years.
Lemons and water and sugar.
Yeah. Do you think that you learned anything from your commercial banking clients?
Yeah. Yes. Working with a lot of self-made individuals, looking at their financial statements, watching what they did, how they lived their life, from the vehicles that they bought, from the cars they had, to just how they spent their money. What were things that were important to them, by watching that, yeah, I mimicked, the best qualities that I like the most, and one of those things has always been for me is making memories. You don't always have to have stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I like my toys, but it's always been very important to travel and do things with my children and make sure that I do things with my family because you know that's how you prepare the next generation and those thoughts really just shape who you turn out to be.
Mm. Do you think also there's a little bit of seeing some of these commercial business owners and going, well, these people aren't really that smart. Like they don't have it all figured out. They aren't so intelligent that there's no way that I could replicate their success. Because that's how I feel. I meet a lot of business owners, some of them smarter than me, some of them duller than me, and everything in between. And sometimes I'm just shocked by the level of success that people have. And you go, well, that's not impossible. Like that's attainable. That is something that someone worked for a considerable amount of time and got there. Like, why not me?
Well, yeah, I mean, you make a great point. Am I the smartest one? No, I like to be around people that are smarter than me, and I like to pick off those little side snippets and take it and run. But uh, I think it comes down to a lot of self determination and grit. How much are you wanting to put into it? I mean, most people look at where I am now and they think that they'll be there in a year or 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've got
Mm-hmm.
I've got 20 years in this, man. It's not as simple as what you think, and I think we're in a society where people want instant gratification so quick that it's hard to replicate that,
Mm-hmm.
and you just have to. It's not so much how smart you are. It's how much. I think it really goes down to how much you're willing to put into it, how much you believe in yourself. I mean, like you said, I've seen people that there is no way that they're smart, but they have made a heck of a lot more money than me. They have put things right, and they've done it because they're determined,
Mm-hmm.
and they dug their ditch. They put in the work, and most people they don't want to put in the work. They
Mm-hmm.
want to half in, you know.
Yeah, and there's this idea that uh, anyone who is more successful than you is sort of better at business. Like, and if you just stop and think of it like that, instead of trying to write off their success as like, oh, like David was lucky, like he got into the right industry at the right time, you kind of remove all those lessons that you probably could have learned from that person. So if you just go like, oh, Kylie Jenner, whatever, like she had, a famous sister and a famous family and a reality TV show. It's like, no, dude, she built like a $500 million business. Like, let's slow down for a second. She might know something about business that you don't know, and you might just think, oh, she's lucky, that's why she's doing it. But that might not be the reality of the situation. So I've made a big effort of that to not just write off like, oh, well, yeah, like David, he's successful, but like he's in a business that I would never be. It's just like, stop, like absorb the lessons for a second and actually take something away from it before you say like that person's lucky, they're privileged, they're fortunate, they're in the right industry. Like, they got lucky, they bought Bitcoin early. It's like, okay, slow down. All right. Like let's take some lessons away from it, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everything that you just said, all of those people took a chance and did something when you didn't. I mean, everybody still had all of those same opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we could have. I mean, how many times when did we first hear about Bitcoin? I mean, you could put $100 in it,
Yep.
but you didn't want to. You
Yep.
didn't believe in it. Now you do. I mean, and that kind of goes with everything in life. But yeah, I agree with you 100% there.
So talk to me about what actually was the catalyst to jump, because commercial banking with a couple of kids, like I know a lot of people who thought they would become entrepreneurs and then life kind of hit them like it hit you. And it's like, oh, geez, now I got like a couple of kids and a family and, probably a mortgage and maybe 2 cars and maybe we want to send them to private school. And then they just don't end up actually ever making that leap. And then before they know it, they're, 45. They're like, hey, well, this is just, what life is. But you actually did like just make the left turn. How did you arrive at that decision?
Oh, well, like most things in life, a lot of times you are forced into those situations, and it's how you manage that situation and how you proceed with it. Every misdirection or there's a good upside to it. It's kind of like the whole gratitude. Oh, I got in a wreck today. Boo hoo is me. Well, I can look at it as, you know what? I wasn't killed today and I wasn't hurt. Car's replaceable. I can get over that and I can move forward. And I think you have to kind of look at every situation in life, try to find the positive in that. And like me, like you said, yeah, my kids are in private school. I've got a mortgage, got two kids, got a wife. We've got responsibility. And when you become a parent, it's kind of strange because it's like this other sense just kicks in that you've got responsibility that you want to take care and provide for. And all of a sudden that you didn't know how you were going to do something, you all of a sudden are able to do it, and you're able to provide, and you somehow manage to keep moving. In my instance with pivoting, I was forced to pivot. The bank, we were starting to pick up a little notoriety. We were starting to get noticed. We were getting, people liked what we were doing. And my bank at the time basically just said, all right, here's the image that we've got. Do you want to be in the porta potty business or do you want to be a banker? Because
so they knew you were doing this kind of simultaneously.
Yes, they knew that I was doing it simultaneously. Yeah, I was able to do it simultaneously because my business was primarily events on the weekend. So, you can schedule that. You can make it work. And being in the commercial banking, I was out on calls. I felt like, I've made my calls. I've made my work. I've met all of my goals. I'm given 150% of my life to my banking world. What does it matter what I do on the side to, and at the time it was just fun. It wasn't even a side hustle. It was just something different and something exciting to talk about, and getting to see different events. And, all of a sudden I'm able to go kind of behind the scenes at movies being filmed, or I'm being a part of somebody's wedding. So it was just different. It was exciting. It was turning a page. It was like opening a book that you weren't expecting that you would like, but it was just learning. It was knowledge, and it was fun. But the bank basically made me choose. And at that point it was kind of like, all right, well, if you're going to continue on it, then we're going to fire you. So it's like, well, I guess the decision is made. And at that point, I remember coming home and telling my wife, and she just fell to her knees in the backyard. She was just like, what are we going to do?
I was going to ask what the wife thought of this whole thing, but it sounds like she didn't get a chime into your ear like, don't do that, David. This is stupid.
No, she, as I said, it was just kind of something fun. It was occupying our time. We were creative. We were having fun with T-shirts and jokes, number one in the number two business. And, oh, we're the potty princess. And, we're going to oyster roast and parties and tailgates. And yeah, we're providing the crapper, but it was fun. I don't know how to explain it other than it was fun. Yeah, it wasn't fun cleaning it, but it was fun going and enjoying ourselves. It was like another life had been kind of injected into us. We had kids for 5 or 6 years, and we had been going through the whole thing with being married and having kids, and the life is go rent the VCR, the movie, and pizza, and that's your Friday night. Um, so getting out and doing things in the public was a lot of fun, and going to events. I mean, we were taking the kids to different festivals that we hadn't done. So I mean, we were more active. It was just all around an exciting time for us.
Sounds like in some ways sort of felt like you needed it.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I think everybody gets in that rut. They get in that rut where it's the same thing over and over. I mean, why do people buy toys? Why do people shop? Why do people drink? I mean, it's to kind of separate themselves from the reality of life.
And it's also, you had been sold this dream of a life where I'm going to get the kids and I'm going to get the wife and I'm going to get the commercial banking job and it's going to take off and we're going to have to picket fence. And then you get to a realization where you're like, huh, like that wasn't quite what I was looking for, actually. Everyone told me this was the path, but sometimes you do have to get there to realize, like, oh, this isn't exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I mean that's. I think that the grass is not always greener on the other side. You achieve these dreams that you think that you want, or what society tells you that this is what you're supposed to have, and it's like, okay, well, I have more debt, and I live in a nicer house, I drive a nicer car, but it still takes me to point A to point B, and I still, I'm still not being rained on. I still have power. Like, there's not much different. So it's all about what stimulates you, what drives you, what motivates you, and what brings you happiness and joy.
So day one, where you've moved on from the bank, your wife is on her knees in the backyard. What does that following day look like? I assume you have one unit at that point in time.
At that time, we probably had maybe 5 or 6 of them.
All
I think.
right, so that's a pretty serious. That's like a real business. I was thinking you had one unit and you was just, hey, I can do
Yeah,
one festival.
I mean, it's still a side hustle. I mean, it's not like we're making a lot of money. I mean, we were probably pulling in at that point, I don't know, $6,000-7,000 a month. It's not much, but for a little side hustle that was not supposed to really do anything, and you're kind of just thinking like, oh, I'm just going to have a nice write-off at the end of the year with depreciation, started to turn into something. And at that point, soon after that, we got nominated for Small Business of the Year in Savannah. So that was it was almost kind of like another small little boost. Some people, like you said, can call it luck. Other people can say that, hey, you were doing something different. You were making a way big enough that people stopped and took notice of you. So I mean, that's a valiant effort on my business partner and our families and our the people that supported us.
So are you like a handy guy? How are these getting assembled? So anybody who's just listening, how would you describe it, Dave? They have what, 3 or 4 like stalls each, maybe more than that?
So our model started out as everything was a private stall. It was basically like your half bath. And our models back then had 2 stalls or 3 stalls. So you each had your private stall. You went into a enclosed trailer. You had a porcelain toilet. You had a vanity with a sink. You had mirror. It was climate controlled. You had real toilet paper, you had real soap, you had real hand towels. So you went in, closed the door, and it was basically like a bathroom. I mean, it wasn't as classy as what they are now, but it was a huge upgrade. I mean, you have running water, flushing toilets. It's for all intents and purposes a real functioning restroom. It's just on wheels. So each trailer had 2 to 3 stalls in it.
Were you building those yourself, or are you outsourcing, having somebody build that?
No, those were all outsourced at that time.
That time.
Yes. Well, there's quite a few different manufacturers now. We have built trailers a few times ourselves.
Okay.
And that comes with its own, I guess, trials and tribulations. But there are some really good manufacturers out there: Wells Cargo, Jag, Satellite. All of these guys do an exceptional job in manufacturing these trailers. So they're your main providers right now in our industry.
So the first one, it was probably a little bit of a leap of faith, because I'm imagining that's going to cost you what, 4 or 5, 10 grand, maybe even.
Our first trailers cost us around $40,000 a piece.
Jeez, I'm way undershooting it, man.
Yes.
So that's a big investment. That is a serious investment. Then
yes.
Your wife was like, "Are you sure you want to build a mobile bathroom?"
Yeah, and it was when we built that, when we had them built the first time. I mean, you got to think all of these molds that were built. They were, all of this is new. So to make something unique like this, it was very capital intensive. It's funny because over the years, that same model trailer we could get 5 years down the road for like $19,000. When they started to produce a whole lot more of them. But the first couple models that we built were like 40 grand.
So you were pretty serious about this business to shell out $40,000 on it, and I'm assuming that comes from your own pocket and your business partner's own pocket.
Yes.
Have you ever taken on money to date? Is that something that you've done?
Like what do you mean? You mean borrowed money?
Investments, like investors, private equity, anything like that?
We've never had any private equity or investors. It's all been organically through ourselves, either funded through Robert or myself, or us borrowing through our bank.
Yeah, that's how we are too. So I always find it fun when I talk to people who have done that, and I'm just like, what's that like? Like, tell me about that process. And there sounds like there's just like everything. There's pros and cons. There's no solution, just a trade-off.
Yeah, I think that we probably, the bottom kind of fell out of the market when we were at our peak back in 2008, 2009. So at that point, we could have really been a large, I guess, really dominant force in the industry. And we still have a big majority. Most of our business is all still, or our competitors are all still small mom and pops or small porta potty companies. There's not really any large organizations like Royal Restrooms. You've got a couple United Site Services or United Rentals, but they offer a plethora of different products, and often porta potties, which we don't do any of the blue porta johns. All we have is restroom trailers. But I think that we would probably be a whole lot bigger and a lot more wealthier if we would have probably taken some investment in venture capitalists back in the day. But at the time, I mean, it just seemed like, wow, we've done so much, and you want such a large piece of this and yeah, I understand that you're giving us money, but we're kind of it's still a leap of faith as to what you tell us that you're really going to bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And, they want so much equity up front for this money. And well, we just, as you said, we weren't smart enough, or we didn't have the, I guess, business coaches or mindset or mentors that could tell us exactly from our perspective what we needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't that we didn't try. We just never felt comfortable doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I wish now that we would have found a partner that could have taken us to the next level.
Yeah, because it sounds like it's a very capital intense business. So anytime you're trying to, and I'm sure you'll get into the model a little bit, but I think I saw you have over 50 locations or 50 locations throughout the United States.
Yes.
So how many units is one location going to probably have?
So with the exception of our newest offices that opened, the majority of those offices have anywhere from 24 to 45 trailers.
All right, so I mean, if you got 24 and they're 20,000, what is that? $480,000 just to get the equipment. I mean, that's pretty capital intense times 50, locations. I mean, that's
which
like capital.
The cheapest trailer now that you can buy for a 2-stall is probably somewhere around 32 to 35,000.
Yeah, so a lot of equipment. It's
So
a very equipment intense business.
It's very, very capital intensive now, which is why the majority of them, like I said, are your side hustles, your mom and pops. They own 1 or 2 trailers, and they kind of treat it like a little piece of real estate or something, like they bought a rental house.
But I imagine that's a good thing for you because that keeps a lot of the competition out. Because if you go, okay, you want to compete with me on a local scale, sure, you can compete with me on a local scale. But if you want to compete with me on a national scale, it's like you might need, 10, 20, $50 million just to get the equipment up and running, let alone to start to build the infrastructure and people. To me, that's a great business because the barrier to entry is extremely high.
So it's extremely high and it's extremely easy at the same time, because that small person can get going, but they can't. It's hard for them to make it into a real business, because it does get very expensive, and it's hard to manage things outside of a 25-30 mile radius.
Mm-hmm. So talk to me about how the business then progresses. So you've got a handful of units. You're parting ways with the bank. What does life look like at that point in time, and how do you and your business partner go about scaling up the business?
Besides panicking and pulling out everything that we could possibly think of, and trying to we got out there and we beat the street. We basically went to every event that was there. We didn't do like flyers or stuff like that. We went and we physically went and met these people. We went and brought event coordinators. We'd ask them when their Tuesday weekly lunch or business, and we'd go and we bring a trailer and we bring 24 Krispy Kreme donuts and 5 gallons of coffee, and we say, hey, just give me 5 minutes, come check it out, go on about your meeting. And we beat the street. We got involved with a lot of nonprofits. We really pushed hard into the nonprofit, and we wanted to make sure that people knew that we were part of this community. Our local market right now, it's hard to do as much as we do, because we do over $100,000 in-kind donations to our local market here in Savannah. And for our gross revenue, that is a lot for a small business to do. But that's how important it is to be a part of this community and to let people know, because everyone that sits down on on our seat. We got a customer. We have an experience. We have a memory that people, they're not going to go backwards. They're going to move forward, and they're going to want a Royal restroom.
So you feel like once you get the customer one time, then that's a pretty solid in on getting them for multiple events in the future.
Yeah. Well, I think, our business model is not always like, once we get you, we're just going to stop. We continue to earn your business. We want to do things better. We want to make sure that we're always putting our best foot forward. But we're more in the service industry than the portable sanitation industry. We're more about that commitment to making sure that your event is, from our perspective, seamless. I mean, the last thing that we want is for someone to talk about us. If they are talking about us, we want it to be a good thing. We don't want it to be, oh my gosh, I have to go to the bathroom. Did you see the bathrooms? We want them to say, did you see the bathrooms? Like that, they're amazing. That's the response that we want.
So you're pounding the pavement in your local Savannah area, and that's starting to work pretty well for your team. How do you think about, like, shoot, now we got to like buy another unit and another unit? I imagine I'm in an inventory business, so this is sort of the same way, where business starts scaling up and you got to buy the next thing, and it scales up and you buy the next thing, and you're like, geez, we can't make any money in this business because we just have to keep buying the extra inventory.
Well, and we continue to grow. That we have that little presence that in our Savannah area that was starting to, I guess, feed us.
And is Savannah like a big event town?
It is. We are a very touristy town.
Oh yeah.
We have a lot of weddings are a big deal down here. We've got an extended wedding season, kind of from March until maybe end of May, and then again from September to mid-November, because the weather's nice here during that time. During the middle of summer, it's just too hot. But we do have a lot of activities that are outside, and we're a bit of a destination, place. I mean, we're one of the 13 colonies, so we've got a lot of history and a lot of old buildings, and I believe we have the largest historic district in the country. But getting back to talking about a little luck and being at the right place at the right time. We were at Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, and we provided all of our trailers down there that we had, which wasn't a ton, but we did some of the, I guess, the displaced camps and stuff like that for people that had lost their homes and things. And President George Bush was on, I believe it was CNN or one of the news stations, but they caught him coming out the back of one of our restrooms.
Hey, there
Royal
you go.
Restroom on there. And that really kind of put us a little bit on the map. And from that trickle effect was 2 or 3 years running. I mean, right after that, we went to New York for the U.S. Tennis Open in Flushing's. What is it, Flushing Meadows or something? I think that's what it is. Right. But we started doing some bigger jobs and events.
That's just people calling you, just seeing what you have, and just giving you a call.
We're driving stuff to Las Vegas. We're taking trailers all the way across country to Las Vegas. We're taking them to Chicago. We were taking them to Miami.
And presumably charging a premium for that also.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the delivery was, 5 times what the rental rate was. It was crazy. But
it's probably kind of fun. Just like, I'm going to drive to Vegas. It's been 4 or 5 days out here in Vegas, and
It was.
Partially annoying, I'm sure, driving a trailer across the country, but also probably partially fun.
It, it it's all about building that business, and it's all about how much you want to do. And at the time, it was, yes, it was fun, and sometimes it was a pain, but at the other times, it's like, hey, this is how I'm making my living right now, and I've got to keep doing it. This guy's, he's a event planner out of New York doing an event in Vegas. There's no telling what he could throw our way.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, as a side note, so is George Bush the most famous person that's used one of your restrooms, you think?
Uh, no, I probably.
No. I mean, there's not that many more people on planet Earth more famous than him.
Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, well, I guess I don't know if I can say this or not because it's technically not me. But one of my offices, I mean, we've got. I think we've got a private facility for Elon Musk
All right. Well, that's a pretty famous fella
right
right
now.
now, I would have to say. There
But
you go, man.
we've done we've done events for President Obama, Biden,
Mm,
President Trump,
mm.
the Clintons. We've for a plethora of movie stars. We did. Gosh, what was it? Google David. We did his wedding in one of the Caribbean islands. We shipped trailers over there for his wedding.
Hey, nice.
Um, so
Nice.
we've done a lot of cool and fun things. I think we've done 7 different Super Bowls over the 20 years.
No.
Lots of bowl games, lots of PGA tournaments. We've done stuff for Porsche, BMW, Ferrari. Pebble Beach. We've done things all over the country.
That's fantastic. So you're riding that wave of people seeing Bush walking out of the Royal Restroom. I'm sure you're just wishing your logo was even bigger and even brighter. You're like, we got to get it bigger next time. And you're just
Oh yeah.
rolling around across the country. How many units do you think you had at that point in time? And at what point do you go, damn, we need to host some of these, like start these in Vegas because this is crazy driving them to Vegas.
At that time we had maybe had 10 or 12.
Mm-hmm.
So we still didn't have a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And
were most events you're dragging a lot of them, or most of them, or you're dragging one or two?
most of the events we were dragging 1 or 2.
Okay.
Not because the events they were not large events, I wouldn't necessarily say, but they were higher tier events,
Mm-hmm.
and they wanted it to be all the way at the top.
Yeah.
But at that time, Robert and I we weren't even thinking about opening offices, franchises. We weren't thinking any of that. We were still mom and popping it. How are we gonna survive next month? What are we gonna do here?
Mm-hmm.
And the goal was, hey, we want to grow the business, but we ultimately want to, enjoy our time doing it and spend time with our families.
Yeah.
And I believe it was Andy Christian. And I mean, it was all of this stuff happened all very quickly, but
Mm-hmm.
Andy Christian out of Florida, he went to a wedding and he used one of our restrooms, and he talked to a friend of his, and the friend of his knew a friend of ours, and put us together. And I went and met with him off of I-16 for about 3 or 4 hours at Ronnie's restaurant. And we talked about how he can put Royal Restrooms down in Gainesville, Florida. And he's like, no, I want to do Royal Restrooms. I want to have your logo. I want to share your website. I want to just mimic everything that you guys do, and we can basically act as one. And so we had a local attorney draw up a license agreement, and we sold a license. And from there, we went to Seattle, Washington. A couple came down, Jane and Max Van Bleck, They came down to do a tour of homes in Savannah and used the restrooms at the tour of homes. And they're like, Seattle has nothing like this.
Mm.
We want to bring it to Seattle. And so we shot off to Seattle. And then I think we went to Atlanta, and then we went to San Francisco. And then I think we went to Nashville, Tennessee, and then we went to Phoenix, Arizona.
So once that first domino fell, that you're like, wait a minute, we can just license this thing out. Then
Yes.
by chance, people are just sort of starting to ask about it.
And we're gaining a lot of ground. And I mean, we are selling trailers. We've got more business than we know what to do with. And we were up at I think it was the governor's, it was the governor's mansion or the lieutenant governor in Maryland. And they were having a party, and the attorney general up there, we had on the back of our trailers a long time ago for business opportunities, call this number. And they called in and decided that we were a franchise and we were violating franchise laws, and they shut us down. And we could not, we had about an 18-month pause where we could not communicate with anyone to discuss the operations of our business at all. We couldn't even respond back to them in an email saying we can't talk to you.
So they were saying that you were in violation of like the specific laws associated with franchises and franchisees?
They said that we were not a license, that we were a franchisee or a franchise, and that we needed to become a franchisor.
So what was their justification of the difference there between a licensee and franchisor?
Because we had set standards. A license is more, we're licensing the name so that you can use the name. But we were basically saying, you have to keep your trailer clean. You have to use these logos. You can't alter this logo. You have to do this. And so at that point, they said with the different stipulations that we were mandating them that we had to become a franchise, and we had to basically go through and disclose all of our information to everyone. We had to have audited financial statements. We had to say what we were spending for marketing and where we were putting marketing dollars and all of that. And back then it was just, kind of a free flow, a free fall. We were just doing whatever we wanted to do. As long as everyone was happy and we're getting business, we were just coasting.
So what year was that, and how many locations did you have at that point in time?
I think we got stopped in 2008, into 2007, 2008. I think we had maybe a dozen licenses, maybe I think there was about a dozen licenses, but that encompassed about 25 different offices at the time.
I see. Interesting.
Because the individual owners, some of them opened up satellite offices in different areas.
So how does life change for you and for your now franchisees at that point in time?
Well, back then we brought in all the attorneys and did the whole franchise. And I mean, it's this huge document that's, it's like 3 inches thick, 200 pages.
Makes it a whole hell of a lot harder to sell, I'm sure.
It makes it a lot harder to sell, but it also protects both the owners and the buyers from different things. It outlines the whole process. It's kind of like the blueprint for keeping things in line. A lot of times when you buy a franchise, yes, it's a proven model. It's a proven method if you do X, Y, Z. But there's still no guarantees. There's still that element of the environment. There's the business owner. How much are they really going to put into it? It's not like everything's not like a McDonald's. You put a McDonald's and, you know, you're flipping burgers and you're just gonna make a sale. In our business, you do have to do a certain amount of marketing and you know, commitment to the business to get it established and up and running. There's only so much an internet can do from that side of it. And that document, that FDD, that federal document disclosure, kind of outlines all of those things that you don't really like to talk about. You know, what happens if you break the rules? What happens if you know, here are the standards. And they go so far as to tell you what kind of trucks that you have to buy, that how often you have to update your equipment, which in our business, we're pretty lax in that. We are more family style run. I believe that your business is kind of your business. I'm just, you know, as long as you're not hurting the brand and as long as you're providing the service and as long as your trailers are up to par and you're providing a Royal Restroom brand, then I'm good with how you run your business. So we've never truly enforced a lot of those regulations because I don't think it's that necessary. Royal Restrooms is we want owners that are here to kind of leave a legacy. You know, we want owner operators that are intertwined in the community and this business matters to them. This, you know, we want them to be proud of what they own.
So it sounds like you, after it was all said and done, maybe the franchise document wasn't the worst thing in the world for you. It kind of almost forced you to put systems in place that maybe you didn't have previously.
It did, but it also allowed a lot of our licenses it didn't force them to, you know, you have to buy this franchise, you know, you have to go into this, you don't have to sign this franchise, and we still have a lot of licenses within the system.
So those people were able to be like grandfathered in, sort of.
Yes, they were able to be grandfathered in, and there's not anything wrong with those, I guess, individual, but those are the ones that, you know, they kind of feel like they have a little bit more right to the business because they kind of grew up with us. You know, when we learn something, they learn something. The newer offices, we've got the system, the system in place now. If you've got a problem, call us. Well, we can fix it. 15 years ago, we may not have been able to solve every problem there was. So a lot of these offices and individual owners back then, you know, they solved the problem for us. And then we were able to pitch it to everyone else. So a lot of our older offices, you know, help create the Royal Restrooms brand.
So after this occurs, how do you continue to scale? Because 50 locations around the United States, and I don't know how many people that encompasses, but I'm sure that it also changes a little bit if you're a franchisee instead. Are they considered your employees, or are they considered the employees of the franchisee?
They're considered employees of the franchisee. So we're the franchisor, and we have one location here. Robert and I still have one location in Savannah, Georgia.
Got it.
Everything else they're all independently owned, but we hold the brand, we hold the name, we hold the systems, kind of the checks and balances. We do the website, we do most of the online marketing. Some of the offices do their own social, or will do the social. But we go to the conferences, we go to the bigger wedding shows, we go to hurricane conferences and those sorts of things. But we help each individual office in their own area market, from going to wedding shows like you're in Columbus. We just opened an office in Marietta. Brian Waller, He's actually the founder of Sauers out in Marietta, and we're doing a show in Cleveland. I believe that is the 25th and 26th in January of next year, and then we're doing one in Columbus the following weekend. So I'll be up there for both of those shows.
You gotta come
And
on down and see us, man.
I want to, especially that new building. Hopefully, you won't quite be in it. You said March, I believe, right?
We'll be all the way dried in. I was joking with somebody. It's warm enough now in there that a homeless person would it would be nice. It'd be a nice thought. So all the doors and windows and basically everything is sealed up. So it's getting real. It's getting very real for us.
Well, it's I hate to say it, but we've had quite a few homeless people move into our stuff.
I imagine that would be literal
Mhm.
royalty, for a homeless person. Yeah, that's funny you say that. I could totally see that. That'd be a big win for them. So looking back, would you still do the same thing and franchise out everything? Or if you could go back in time, would you make more independently owned and operated locations? Obviously, it sounds like the license agreement was not really something that was going to be able to fly long term. Would you do it the same way, or would you do it differently? And maybe just talk to me through the pros and cons.
That's a really difficult question to answer because I've got so many lifelong friends, that I've got so many different shared experiences and just truly remarkable times with all of my different office owners. From the different events and the shared stories, the funny ones and the horrific ones, all the same. Being a franchise and not being in the industry, not growing up around it, not having a true understanding of the business, it's been a difficult road for us. They all say that there's this, all franchisees go through it, but you have this honeymoon period where everything is just wonderful, and then along those lines you start to get where the franchisor becomes like the parent, like we're trying to keep the reins, but we're doing that because we've seen what happens. We may not be right, but we're trying to steer you in that direction from our knowledge and our wisdom from past experiences.
Mm.
And a lot of owners, they want to test that. They want to find out what works for them and what doesn't work for them. So you get into not a controversial role, but it's kind of, there's a little bit of headbutting, like, well, I'm gonna do this because everybody has got just enough entrepreneur in them that they've got that that alpha mentality that I can do this, but at the same time they want to make sure that somebody is there in their corner to back them up as well.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a lot of your truly self starters, and I'm not saying that my people are not self starters and all of that, but I'm betting the house. I'm betting everything on what I'm doing and what I've done. And I don't know that people that real, a bunch of self-starters and people that buy franchises are truly willing to bet the whole house on everything. Robert and I were backed up against a wall, and we had to put everything into it to keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I don't want to be disrespectful or anything. That I don't know how to quite word what I'm trying to articulate here.
No, it's an interesting thing to think about, that they are entrepreneurial enough that they want to start a business, but they are not so free-flowing entrepreneurial that they don't want to do it without a little bit of guardrails, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a reasonable thing to think about, because you probably know these statistics much better than I. Like, the average franchisee probably has a significantly higher likelihood of being in business 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line than if you're like, I'm going to start a restaurant. It's like the odds of that staying in business are pretty low if you look at the stats that are out there. So it's wise in some way, shape, and form, but it is an interesting observation that you're still entrepreneurial enough that you're gonna maybe butt heads a little bit with the franchisor. And that's half the reason why I started my own business, because I just don't really love taking direction from other people. I just like doing it kind of my own way. So I was like, well, I
Yeah.
just start my business. I can kind of do it my own way.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was telling you earlier about, like, where we don't focus on all of the, I guess, the dynamics that are within the franchise document disclosure. We are looking to you. We want you to take ownership in this business. We want this business to be yours. We want you to run it your way. As long as you kind of follow the brand and you're not deteriorating it in any way, we want you to run with it. We want you to so that's and that's kind of how I felt like with you. Like, I want to be here to help. I don't want to hinder you in anything. I want to boost your business, because the the bigger you grow, the better you are, the more money that comes to me. If I'm trying to stop you from doing something, I'm not making any money. I'm not growing. I want you to be as successful as you are. And I am trying to be that voice of reason and guidance. You don't have to necessarily listen to exactly what, but hear what I do have to say, because there's value in it. And you, as a self start, even though you did your own business, you took advice or had help from other people. Nobody does it all on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got, they follow some idea, they follow some, uh, you know, I guess, outline that gives them, their direction in how they're going to carry their business and go. I mean, it's just like doctors. They learn from a book, they learn from somebody else, they practiced it, they got better. And the ones who are truly incredible are the ones that have pushed the boundaries and gone further than what they learned. They've looked at things from a different angle. But the majority of the doctors, the lawyers that are out there, but I mean, all that stuff is learned. So what's wrong with business being kind of learned?
While on the topic of franchises, if someone was out there listening and they're considering starting their own business, um, or maybe buying a franchise, maybe talk to me about the pros and cons of being in a franchisee relationship versus starting your own thing. And then if I was going to start a franchise, how do I decide, like, what do I want? Do I want the restroom business? Do I want the restaurant business? Do I want a power washing company? Talk me through how you would think about that question.
Well, first, I think I would look at, how do I want my life to be? Where do I want to be in 5 years and 10 years and 15 years? And I think someone starting their own business, whether it is a franchise or they're creating their own business, how much work do you want to be still working at the business? I mean, if you own a restaurant and you're, man, that's a lot of work. That's hands-on. That is, daily grind. That you've got to stay on top of that stuff. And in 15 years, you're still going to be, doing a lot of that. You may have a manager or someone that's fully running that, but you're still in that business. So if you really want work-life balance, you need to decide what kind of business is going to afford that down the road, to create that life that you really envision. Um, but being a self-starter, owning your own business versus owning a franchise, the benefits to a franchise is we have that blueprint kind of laid out for you. We'll deviate from that blueprint to mix in your area, and that's that's typical of any of the franchises. We are providing you a proven method. We're providing you name recognition, usually, or at least hopefully from a franchise standpoint, that you don't have to go out and spend on that branding. You don't have to have that learning curve. We're already there doing it, hopefully from a national contract standpoint, hopefully from a national marketing standpoint. I mean, if you buy a Chick-fil-A, I mean, you know what you're getting, you know. But if you're going to start another chicken sandwich shop, you've got a lot of legwork to do. You've got a lot of ground to make up if you're going to compete with Chick-fil-A. Restroom companies, different franchise operations, you know, those things already have that appeal to, you know, to the masses, I guess. It's not, I'm just opening a new shop. There is something that is recognizable from, you know, search engine, or they've had an experience, or there are, you know, reviews, there are pictures, there are things that kind of verify or give your business that leg up.
What are people gonna, I know this is gonna vary so much from franchise to franchise, but what are the downsides? Obviously the downside is you're not making 100% of the money, right? So how does that generally work based on your experiences with franchises?
So we charge 6% on your gross revenue. And then we have a 2% marketing fee on top of that. I like to look at it from this standpoint. The typical business spends anywhere from 14 to 18% on marketing, advertising, website, that sort of, you know, that's a pretty standard statistic. You're basically getting that from a franchise for 8%.
So that's
You know,
the way
so
that you kind of that's how
so
you
if you
pitch it to
look
us.
at it like that, what we do for you, you cannot hire someone else to do for you. Now you're still going to do marketing locally, but we want you to invest with nonprofits. So we're not asking you to necessarily spend money. We're asking you to kind of donate your time, which still costs money, but it's not it's not the full expense. In other words, if you're renting to a local nonprofit and you're charging them $2,000, you know, your hard expense may only be really $600 or $700.
I see.
You know, but you're getting that exposure and you know that intimate relationship with that community and supporting that event. And not only that, I mean, it feels good. I mean, it feels good to be a part of a community and helping out others less fortunate.
I know that I've also heard from a lot of franchisees, and this may be true or more true in the restaurant industry, but they're going to charge you fees on the purchasing of certain ingredients or cups or straws, or hey, you got to buy all the machines from us. It doesn't sound like you have that much equipment in your business, obviously the restrooms, but how do you see most franchises working on that? Because I've heard that can be like a monetary suck, and you're sort of locked in sometimes in some way, shape, or form to purchase things from a certain one entity.
It is. So a lot of that stuff is to make sure that the brand is consistent across the board. You know, like McDonald's selling all their hamburgers.
Right.
You know, Zaxby's selling all the different Zax sauce. You know, you're buying all the chicken, so it tastes the same on the East Coast as it does the West Coast. We are not so concerned about the look as we are about the service. We're
Mm.
about providing a clean, functioning restroom that's kind of giving that restroom experience, one free of anxiety and comfort. So we're selling more of that experience and not so much the product. So we don't have our revenue stream is not derivative from buying products from our offices, but still the same thing. It's still difficult for offices to cut a check to anybody. I mean, it's hard to write a check uh, for services that you use when you don't really you don't know how much you're getting back out of it, I guess you could say.
Mm.
Even though you are getting a lot, you may not feel like you are.
Mm.
Um,
Do you run into that situation often where people there go, geez, 8% of my money is going to David, and what is he doing with it?
oh yeah, we get that, all the time. It's like, oh well, I don't get any leads from the website. Well, how are they getting your? Oh, they call my phone number. Okay, where do you think they're getting the phone number? Because
Mm-hmm.
they're not calling 411 and getting it that way. Because I mean, we're running everything to your cell phone. Like, you're getting but yes, we get that a lot. But the thing is you are still getting business off of stuff that we've taught you.
Mm.
We've taught you how to market. We've taught you how to be there. You have repeat customers. You have repeat business, and you've built that brand the way that we've helped you build it. So even something that I did 10 years ago is still paying off dividends now.
Mm.
But for you to say that we're not doing anything for you, okay, we did, and you're still getting business off of what we did 10 years ago. Um, you know,
I
I,
imagine that's a classic franchisor conversation. That probably happens in every franchise to some capacity.
yes, yes, it does. And it's, um, you get that, and it's easily understandable because, I mean, I get it. I understand. I mean, it's so funny. The minute we updated our website earlier this year, and we lost a lot of organic traffic when because we completely redid our website. Our old
Mm.
website was horrible. I mean, it
Mm.
was so outdated, but we had, I mean, we just organically we popped up everywhere.
Mm.
So it was very hard decision to pull it because of the amount of leads that we got. But I mean, it was just aesthetically, it was just so outdated. I mean, it was like 7 years past its due date.
Mm-hmm.
So when we transformed to the new website, everybody's like, "Oh, I'm not getting any leads now. I'm not getting any leads. What'd you do?" It's like, wait a second. Are you really relying this much on the website?
Mm.
Like, wait a second. Like, is this making that? Oh, I've lost so much business. I'm like, hold on a second. If they're typing in Royal Restrooms, we're still popping up. If they're typing in your email address, it's still popping up. If they're Googling, I mean, you should be popping up under the Google local search results. Like, I don't understand how you've lost this much business.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it was a huge issue that we lost so much by updating the website. And there was a significant drop off in leads, but at the same time, like, okay, guys, what are you guys doing locally? Are you relying that much on us? Really? I mean, seriously, are you relying that much on us? That's a
Mm-hmm.
lot to stomach.
So, David, where do you see the future of the business going? You're
Mm.
50 locations or so in. Is it 75? Is it 100? Is it 200? Is it international? Or is this business something that you could foresee yourself selling to a larger franchise group at some point?
you know, I, there's there's been some thought to exiting, but I don't feel like we're finished.
Mm.
As I mean, we're at 20 years old. We've never pushed to be, to grow. We've never had a team in place. We've never marketed to grow. So everything that we've done has been by word of mouth or kind of that squeaky wheel. That is, I mean, we get franchise requests all the time. It sometimes takes me, weeks to get back with them,
Mm-hmm.
to follow up with them, because that's not so much as the priority.
Mm-hmm.
We want to open businesses, we want to open offices, but at the same time, it's a lot of work that we put in, and it's a lot of expense to go forward. I was really focused more at our 20-year anniversary. I wanted to roll out some different products,
Mm.
and I've had some mixed results in that. Throughout the years, we've listened to event organizers and planners and stuff, and we've seen what they're looking for. People are always looking for refrigeration trailers. They're looking for office trailers. Um, and so we tested out some beverage trailers like bar trailers. We've tested out some LED screen high definition trailers, uh, office trailers. We're testing out, a variety of different things to supplement our business. And I would say about half of my offices are like, we're a restroom company. We're a restroom company. Why are you doing this? What is and it's like, well, we got 52 weeks in a year. If we can upsell, why not? If we can make the event better, why not? Why can't we offer, if we're doing a backyard wedding and we've got a restroom trailer, 99.5% of the time they've got a bar. Why not provide the bar? Why not
Mm-hmm.
provide something that's nice? If it's a car show, they're going to need refrigeration trailers. They're going to need bar trailers. They're going to need TV trailers, and probably an office trailer. So why not, instead of just renting restroom trailers for 25,000, why not rent everything for 50? You're
Mm.
already at the event. It's not changing anything. So I've dabbled in trying to make some changes, and not that I want to change Royal Restrooms, but I mean, I feel like there is more of an opportunity out there, and I'm kind of leaning more towards expansion in that direction, expanding how we can do to continue to elevate the event industry, not just the restroom industry.
Mm. Have you heard of the more better new framework? It's kind of first you do more, then you do it better. You try to like increase the value of those customers, which just sort of sounds like where you are, and then it's like new. It's like I guess I would consider this more in the better than in the new. It's a bit of a new product, but I think you're trying to
It,
make your customers' lifetime value higher.
yeah, and I even all of our restroom trailers. I mean, they're all the same. It's a big white box with a very nice restroom inside. I mean, but it looks like a big, huge cargo box just sitting there. So it's not really appealing. And this year I changed that, and we built some of I built some of my own trailers, and they have polished stainless steel on the exterior.
I
And
saw some of those on the
I've
website.
got, they are awesome. I mean, they are so cool. And the great thing is like at a wedding or an event, it's almost like it brings it front and center. It's almost like a cool factor, and the fact that it mirrors the surroundings, so it's not, you don't even notice it's there.
Mm.
It's super cool, and the bar looks just like it. Um, and the people love them. It is such a new shock. It's like 20 years ago when we introduced the restroom trailers, and we would go to these I mean, people were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. 2 years ago, go to a wedding show, it's like, oh, restroom, I've seen it.
Yeah.
Buddy has this. man, we bring out the vintage series that we've got, and people are just, they're tripping over themselves to look at it. I mean, it's like you got people taking selfies in front of it, and it's like, it's a bathroom. It's a portable restroom, and you're sitting here taking selfies.
That's funny, man. Well, David, I really appreciate you coming and chatting with us. Tell people where they can find you and where they could potentially learn more about becoming a franchisee. I know you said you're sometimes slow to respond to those, or just if someone's in the area and needs some help with their events.
Yes. Well, I promise I am trying to do a little bit better job at getting that out there. You can always find us at royalrestrooms.com. I'm also on LinkedIn at David Sauers. We're pretty easily found, but on our website, Royal Restrooms, we've got the franchise information, which you can fill that information out, and we do send you a follow-up email. I just have been a little tardy of late trying to get that back in there, and I'll promise to make a little bit better job.
I went to this workshop 2 weeks ago, and he's like, we, acquired a portion of this business and we increased their conversion rate by like 40%. They're like, oh my God, this is amazing. What'd you do? They're like, we just called the leads that you had. Like, you guys didn't call them. They're like, calling? Gosh, that sounds kind of invasive. It's like they put their phone number in the form. You have to call them. So I thought that was hilarious. But David, thank you, man.
It is. I appreciate your time tonight. I really do.